Hello everyone. On today's episode of Logan Cooks, I will be cooking my car. Yeah, let me explain a little bit. So basically, I don't really know what to do with this channel. I love posting cooking videos, but a lot of the time I just don't have time to like sit down and edit that sort of thing. A lot of times, you're just throwing together food and it's like, okay, let's just get something to eat. I don't have time to like make a video or anything. So I've been pretty preoccupied with like just other things in life. YouTube is not a very big priority for me. It's something I just do for fun. But one of those things I was doing recently, a couple months ago, was replacing the carburetor in my car. And one of my buddies told me, you might want to post it on YouTube because some people may think that's interesting and they could follow along and, you can do a better job explaining what's going on with that. So that's what I'm doing. What are we doing today? Nothing, because I don't know what's wrong with it right now. But I am going to walk you through what I have plans for this thing this summer and then what I've done to kind of diagnose the issues that are going on right now. So I guess I can go ahead and get started with that. Oh, by the way, I should probably tell you what this is. This is a 1979 Thunderbird. It's got a 5.8 liter 351 Windsor V8 and a 3-speed automatic transmission. So yeah, you would think it's fast because, it's got a 5.8 liter V8. So let me tell you what's wrong with this thing, or at least what I believe is wrong with this thing. For the past couple of months, I was having a problem with it where you could drive it sometimes for 30, 40 minutes, no problem. And it would just be like totally fine, but sometimes you would drive it for 5 or 10 minutes and it would just stall out completely at random, Most times it was when you were pulling away from a stop and the car would be like, I'm just not doing it anymore. Don't feel like running. I'm going to die. And then you would crank it over and it would start right back up again. So that was a pretty big problem for me. And by we, I mean, I talked to my mechanic. I talked to the neighbor who around here works on some cars as well. May have been able to help. And then I tried to diagnose it myself, and nobody could figure out why it was doing this. It went on for 5 months. We went over, or I did with this mechanic, the entire ignition system. We checked, the coil is good. The box was thought to be good because these, oh boy, actually, I could explain, but basically we thought every component in the ignition system was good. There was no issue with the vacuum advance. It didn't seem to be the EGR. Disconnected the EGR, drove around with that a while. So, that ran fine. So I assumed, even though it was a bit strange to think that this sort of issue could be fuel caused, that it was fuel caused, just because the ignition system seemed to be fine. And additionally, the carburetor had some known issues. The choke had trouble pulling off. The throttle would get stuck sometimes. So I figured either to have the carburetor rebuilt or to replace it. And that was kind of when my head started ticking, because, up until a little while ago, I would say up until probably about a year and a half ago or so, I had pretty much all the work of this thing done by a mechanic. But the thing is, I don't know, I want to do it myself. So I started doing stuff myself. I replaced the alternator. That's going to be another project, by the way, because this is just, we'll get there. But anyway, basically, back to the stalling issue. Nobody could figure out what it was. And I spent probably, like a couple of months just going back and forth. The choke would get messed around with. Okay, try driving around without vacuum advance plugged in. Okay, I'll do that. Try driving around without the EGR plugged in. Okay, I did that. Try driving around with, I was getting to like ridiculous things like this. I don't know if anybody knows what the function of this is, but basically, in older carbureted cars, this air intake could change where the air was coming from. When the engine is cold, the idea is there's a little flap right here, and I don't know if you can see it because it's so dark, but there's a little tube right there. And this tube will draw air from your exhaust manifold, like right on top of it, like hot air. So when the engine's cold in the wintertime and things like that, the air running through the carburetor is nice and warm. It helps warm the engine up a little bit faster, and it prevents carburetor icing. then this just drags cold air. So this was stuck, or it seems to be, kind of stuck pulling air from hot. So he said maybe disconnect that, try driving without it, see if it changes things. It didn't change anything. Nobody really knows why. So I, eventually just said, you know what, fuck it. I'm going to get a new carburetor and put it on. So I spent probably a couple months researching, and I came up on this, which is a... Holley 2300. It's about as close. The carburetor that was on here originally was a Motorcraft 2150. This is about as close as you can get to a brand new stock replacement, unless you want to go on like Rock Auto and buy like one of those remans or clones made in like China, or just get like an actual remanufactured carburetor, which I'm sure they'd be fine. But I don't know. Like I figured going with a Holley would have been the better decision, because you could probably get more replacement parts. The build quality is probably going to be a bit better, and people are not lying when they say these things are actually really, really easy to tune. There was a while I thought about going to like the Sniper system and going to EFI. Wow, I am fucking glad I didn't do that, because even this was a nightmare. I thought it was going to take me 4 hours. It took me 4 days. I got on like a first name basis with the guys at like O'Reilly's. I don't know if anybody's ever been in like this bad, but when you walk in the door and they're like, "Oh, you again?" And I'm like, "Yeah, me again." Like, yeah, I'm here again. But eventually I did get that stuck on. It's still got a little bit, I think maybe it runs a hair rich. I should take a vacuum gauge to it again. The choke might be a little bit poorly adjusted, but honestly, in terms of drivability, this really has helped. However, I still stalled after that. So now nobody really knows what the issue is. So I went back to ignition, and I probably spent 2 hours just reading online and looking through shop manuals until I found one little piece of information. You see, a really quick overview of how like an old school ignition system works, or like classic car ignition systems work. You have a couple different components. One of them is your coil. It's again, I know it's kind of dark, but yeah, no, you can't see that. Anyway, just take my word for it. There's a coil right there. It's like a little cylinder, and it's got a plug on it, and that goes to this, your distributor. That wire right there in the middle is the coil wire, and then these 8 go to each of the 8 cylinders. Now inside here, there's a little contacting thing called the rotor that spins around and bridges the gap from this middle wire to each one of these. And each time this passes over, these two things pass over, it should fire the coil. How does it know how to do that? Well, in very old cars, like 50s, 60s, early 70s, they used to have these things called points that were perfectly set up. And each time they broke, they would short the whole circuit, causing the coil to fire. In the earlier 70s, they started moving towards very, very primitive electronic ignitions, which is where you get this box right here. This is called the DuraSpark box, and it is a pain in the ass. It left me stranded on the interstate once. That was not fun. Because these things have a propensity to. So what kills electronics, right? Heat kills electronics. So Ford, in all their infinite wisdom, decided that the best place to mount the engine control block would be about 1 foot from your exhaust manifold. So what happens is when these things tend to fail, they just get hotter and hotter and hotter, and then they go, "I can't do this." And then they shut off. And if you let them cool down for a little bit, they might start back up like nothing happened. And then you can drive for 5 or 10 more minutes, and then the same thing happens. And that's how you know these boxes are failing. And the fact that I've had it happen to me before made me believe that this was not the issue, because it didn't seem to fail in heat. It would fail completely at random. Why would I be able to drive like 40 minutes one day and then drive 5 the next? Why could I take it all the way to like you know, freaking almost Indiana or something, and have it do just fine, and then drive 2 miles home from work and have a line of cars behind me because I kept stalling out. Also, sorry. But anyway, so I didn't think it was that at first because I've had this fail on me before. I know what it's like when it fails. But basically, in relation to points, all this does is instead of having points inside the distributor like you would on an old school setup, there's this little cable that runs out the side right next to your vacuum advance. You see, that's your vacuum advance. There's, gosh, I need better lighting. You know, if I ever start taking this stuff seriously, maybe I'll like get more lights or something. Who knows? Just take my word for it. There's a cable coming out of the side of this thing. And this cable goes to this wire loom right here. And this wire loom plugs into the Duraspark box. So on a normal Duraspark box, what I figured, wait a minute, hold on, let me try something. Oh, that did nothing. I tried to turn the flash on. Oh well. All right, anyway, but basically, stop. Okay, all right. Bro, I am not going to edit this, by the way. You're going to have to watch all of this because I'm feeling extra lazy today. So, you know. But again, if you guys enjoy this or like hearing me talk or want to see me actually do work on this thing, you know, just let me know and I'll see if I can point a camera at me and maybe get a light in here or something. But anyway, that wire loom connects to here, and this thing basically takes the place of, God, come on, man, making me angry. All right. Anyway, this thing takes the place of points. It basically opens and closes that circuit. I don't know, something transistors, freaking KTO calculator. I don't know how it works. Nobody does. Anyway, so there's normally just 2 connectors. You know, this one that comes out of the wire loom, and then I don't even know what the other one does. I think this one goes to like your starter keys or something. I don't fucking know. Anyway, but like all this is supposed to do is close contacts. And normally that's all you'll ever see. Normally these boxes only have this wire and this wire coming out of them. However, in I think 1978 or 9, it doesn't really matter. This is like also the first era when emissions regulations really started to get this. This is like the dawn of like CAFE and like catalytic converters and like smog requirements. All that stuff was new at this time. So this is also why they call them like smog motors. And this is also why it only makes like 170 horsepower, even though it's a 5.8 liter V8. It has like 8 freaking to 1 compression or some V8. I don't know. But like anyway, this one actually has a third connector coming off of it, which is unplugged right now. Right here. See that? Coming out of the box. And this, by the way, fuck these connectors. If anybody has ever had the misfortune of... I tried to test the resistance of the distributor pickup coil yesterday, and it had the same connector on it, and I stabbed my hand with a screwdriver trying to pry it out. Just pull them apart. Just pull them apart. Quick release. No, they're not! Whoever made these hates you. There's no other way. Like, you're not getting those things out, okay? They say pull. That's a joke. The only thing getting pulled is your leg. You are going to need a screwdriver to get that out, and you are going to break plastic, and you're going to be like, is this ever going to go back together? And maybe. I don't know. But, like, anyway, this connector connects to this little thing right here, this vacuum sensor. And this goes back to your intake manifold and tells this box what the manifold pressure is. So it turns out that this box is a special high altitude, high emission, like, or not high emissions, like high efficiency version or something. And basically this is really interesting actually to me, because this is from an era when cars were still carbureted, right? And I don't know if you would know this or anyone watching this would know this, but basically carbureted cars have always had a bit of trouble driving through like altitude changes or something if you go to the mountains. And why is that? Because you set your air fuel mixture with a screw. That screw right there, see, and there's another one on the other side that's just like that. and then you adjust the bowl height through a little glass window, and that's how you adjust your fuel mixture. It doesn't adjust on the fly, which means that as you go up in elevation and the air pressure drops, there's proportionally more gas per unit of air, and your car will run richer. Or if you tune it on the top of the mountain, it will run leaner at the bottom, and you risk engine knock and all those sorts of things. So you can't really change fuel mixture on the fly. What you can change, interestingly, is timing somehow. I didn't know that these boxes had the ability to change engine timing, because normally on these old cars, the only things that really change timing are your advance weights and the vacuum advance, and those are both on the distributor. So to see this is quite, this is a little bit more advanced than I thought it was. It apparently retards timing when you're starting, and also can change timing based off of what this vacuum sensor says, because manifold pressure can correspond to air pressure at any given engine RPM. I don't quite understand how it works, but basically it's to help increase fuel efficiency, and it will change engine timing very subtly depending on atmospheric conditions, manifold conditions, all that. Why was I stalling out? Because of this sensor. Because this sensor, I think, gets stuck. And what would happen is I would try to pull away and the car would just sputter and die. Or you would be driving and it would lurch. And I think essentially what would happen is, since the sensor gets stuck, it tells this box to change the engine timing to something that it should not. And then the box changes the timing according to the stuck sensor, because this thinks that is what the manifold pressure is. So if this is telling it, I'm turning however many pounds of vacuum or whatever, I don't fucking know. But it tells you it's one thing and it's not, and then it adjusts the timing and the whole thing dies. So I spent 2 hours online reading about this, and you know what the solution is? After I spent like $500 on that thing, do you know what you have to do to stop it from stalling? Do you want to guess? Do you want to guess what you have to do? Do you want to guess? Do you want to guess all I had to do after like 5 months? All I had to do was unplug this, and it runs fine now. But anyway, that fixes the stalling out issue. I'm still having another problem though, and I don't quite understand why. This only started happening recently, probably like a month or two ago. It's been sitting a while. I was on vacation, but now it seems to like lurch a little bit. It's only happened twice. I think I'm going to try and take it on a test drive today and see if I can get it to do it again. I have a couple suspicions, but I don't quite understand why it's doing that. People told me Duraspark really cares about grounds, like ground connection to your negative on your battery. If you don't have a good connection to ground, then you're not going to have a good ignition. And sometimes that ground can cut out intermediately as like the engine runs and stuff. So I took a multimeter and I took it to, because the engine block itself is grounded. There's the battery cable runs down to the a good quality smog pump. And then from there it's connected to the rest of the block. So I tested, continuity. First you go, because I thought I had this issue with the alternator as well. I tested from the alternator to negative. That's fine. Okay. So then I start testing continuity. I go from the side of the distributor to the alternator. Perfect continuity. Okay, well, what if I trace it all the way back? And I go unplug the pickup cable, which again is down here. Just take my word for it, man. You can't see anything, I tested one of the leads on that cable, and I tested that for continuity to ground. Perfect continuity. So then I took the pickup coil, which is known, especially in newer distributors, the quality of the wire they use for it apparently can break under heat and stress, which, come on, man. But so I tested the coil, and that's within spec for resistance. So that should be okay. The box doesn't show any signs of a failure the way it previously did. So I'm kind of at an impasse of what to do, because I thought that would have been my problem, and it doesn't seem to be. My only thoughts are maybe that pickup coil has like a bad wire inside it or something, and it flexes. And maybe when it flexes, it could temporarily lose connection. I don't quite understand. I might try replacing the pickup coil. I might just replace the box too, just because, you can get these for like $40, $50 a good quality one. Well, as good as you can these days. But, you can just kind of throw those out. So I might just keep another one in the trunk or put another one in the trunk. I don't know. But that's the ignition issues. That's really what's mainly bothering me with this right now. But I do have other issues. And that other issue mainly is the alternator. And these alternators are just something else, let me tell you. I mean, probably about like 2 years ago at this point, I went and took the alternator and had it rebuilt because it was making a whining noise, as I was driving. The longer I drove, the louder it got. Turn on the defroster, it gets louder. Turn on the brights, gets louder. Very clearly electrical, It changes with engine RPM, the whine pitch, because it's very much alternator related and stuff like that. And then you open the hood and it's the alternator, basically. So I replaced the alternator once. And it starts making that noise again. And I'm like, well, what is going on with this thing? And they tell me, they're like, maybe it could be a short. Maybe it could be like the regulator. What's the regulator? So alternators weren't in one piece back then because Ford was very late to catch on to this. But most alternators now are what's called internally regulated, which, because as this spins, if you were ever a kid and you had like one of those like electric, did anybody else have like one of those like electricity sets or something that came with like the little generator you could spin or something? But basically, as you spin that, the power output increases, right? Obviously, duh. So you need something to keep it at like 14 volts, which is where like the voltage regulator comes in. And that basically sends, I don't know quite how it works, but basically it keeps it at 14 volts. And in most alternators, most every alternator nowadays, that's something that's internal to the alternator. It handles that function itself. Back in the 60s and 70s, Ford had just upgraded from generators to alternators, and they are called the first-gen Ford alternators. They are externally regulated, which means the voltage coming out of this is controlled by this box. Which I did not know until I went through 2 alternators already. So, I checked for shorts, whatever, and then put the new regulator on. But I can't tell if that fixed the problem or not because the alternator still makes noise. But is it making noise because the old regulator destroyed it already? Or is it making noise because it's just bad? So I learned relatively recently, because Ford used this engine from like the mid-60s all the way up to like the mid-90s in one form or another, that you can relatively easily adapt a 90s Bosch alternator to fit on a 70s Ford and clean up your electrical system quite significantly and go from like probably like 70, 60 amps to like 160 amps. Why would I ever need that many amps? I don't know. Everything in here is stock, but like, it's cool. I could be like, I got a high power alternator for the 25 watt radio. But that's pretty much the major. I wouldn't say that's all the problems with this car. It's not even scratching the surface, but that's the major issues that I want to fix with this thing. And yeah, I think I'll walk you guys through. If you're interested in this sort of thing, or you want to see more of this video, see me turn an actual wrench or do something, fail miserably, obviously, but just let me know, and I'll see, because I do have plans for this. I do want to do that alternator conversion at least, and I want to get the ignition system fixed, and I don't know how to do that, but hopefully we get some more information, so I'll keep you guys posted. Oh, the other thing I thought it could be, which I don't know how realistic that sounds, because I don't... I noticed like a couple times after it rained, my fuel door was jammed. There was water in here. It went up to the fill neck, but it didn't go in the fill neck. But I was worried maybe there was like gas in the tank or something. Or, yeah, wouldn't that be new? I was worried there's water in the tank. So I looked, but it just doesn't make sense to me because like why would it like stutter like that only occasionally if there was actually water in the tank? Wouldn't it like, and I've been through a couple tanks of gas since then, so I don't know. I don't know, man. I don't know. Oh, and the sunroof leaks. So I got to get that fixed too. But that's not a Logan job. That's a body shop job, lest I mess this thing up. I want to wash this thing so bad, but I know I can't, given it leaks right now. But you know, once it's all cleaned up, then it'll look real nice. But yeah, that's pretty much the end of this video. No effort whatsoever. This is my car. This is a few of the problems it has and how I want to solve them. And that's pretty much it for now. So again, just let me know if you're interested, and I'll try and keep you guys updated. Okay, I'm gonna run some errands and take this thing for a test drive now. You know, despite everything that is wrong with this car, and the belts may squeal when I start this, they are tight. The pulleys are just like really shined over, and I don't know what to do about that. But again, despite everything that I complain about with this car, you know, it always... I mean, like... All right, let's get going. All right, first errand of the day, in progress, I would say. I'm at the gym right now. Engine's nice and warmed up. I'm probably gonna let it soak in its own heat for about an hour. It should be mentioned, what I'm also trying to do right now is to recreate the path of events where these surges kind of happened in the first place. Both times I was driving after I had let the engine sit for a while. They were medium distance trips, so now the engine is warmed up. I'm going to take this on a bit of a longer drive after I work out, and then I'll see if it can do anything there. This is going to be one of those problems, if you know what I mean by that. But hopefully we can gather a little bit of information. Otherwise, it's a very nice day to go driving today, so you know, I can't really complain. Okay, well, I just finished working out and it is hot as fuck in here, so I'm gonna go ahead and start moving, and we'll see how it does on that longer drive. I'm gonna try and get it up to maybe like 55, 60, you know, maybe floor it or something, see what happens, you know, and then go from there. All right, so let's see what happens when I turn. Looks like the engine is... Yeah, engine's still pretty warm. All right, let's go ahead and crank it over. All right, well, off to the races. All right, I squeezed you guys in between the headrest on the passenger side, so maybe you could get a better view of this drive too. And I'm driving with the windows up and the AC on. I don't do that normally. I'm doing this for you guys, so you can hear me. So you better listen for noises, because I'm not going to. I mean, I might. I don't know. Pay attention. All right, let's get moving. Oh, it's hot as hell outside. All right, now you pay attention. All right? Okay. So far, so good. Oh, man. All right, we're back. Any problems on the trip? No. Any hesitations? No. What did I learn today? I wanted a watermelon. Not much about the car, unfortunately. But I'll keep you guys posted if something does happen, and I'll let you know about the project as it progresses. Or at least maybe I will. I don't know. Maybe I won't if I'm feeling extra lazy.